Are we good to go?
Let's please, okay. Let's please call the meeting to order for the regular meeting of the Budget and Finance Commission for September 10th, 2020. Can we get a roll call, please? Marnie.
Commissioner Woodham?
Here.
Commissioner Wynn?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Samples?
Here.
Commissioner Conroy?
Here.
Commissioner Chun?
Here.
And Chairman Solomon.
Here. Thank you, Marnie. Let's all please stand and we'll do our salute to the flag for our next segment of our meeting. Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United
States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We have next on our item the approval of the order of agenda.
And
Is there anyone who would like to make? Okay. Yes, please.
we're hoping you'll make a change and F3, the salary adjustments.
Okay.
Shouldn't have been on the consent calendar. They should be in section I.
Items for discussion.
Continued from previous agendas. So if you want to make that part of your motion.
Okay. Does anyone have any other changes or suggestions for the order of agenda tonight? Seeing no takers, we will adjust the order of agenda then with a roll call vote to move item F3 to item I, and it would be, I presume, item I1 for tonight's meeting. Would we have a second for that, please?
Second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote then for the order of agenda. Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
Commissioner Chun?
Aye.
Commissioner Wynn?
Aye.
Commissioner Samples?
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Woodham?
Aye.
The chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda are blue folder items. We have, I believe, one blue folder item that was sent out to everybody today. Did everyone receive the blue folder item that was emailed this afternoon?
Yes.
Yes.
Seeing no objections, then we'll have a roll call vote to accept the blue folder item E1 for tonight's meeting. Commissioner Samples?
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Woodham?
Aye.
Commissioner Wen?
Aye.
Commissioner Chun?
Aye.
And Commissioner Johnson, please.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. We have item F1 on the consent calendar, which is the affidavit of posting for the regular Budget and Finance Commission meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the affidavit of posting, please?
Excuse me, Chair. We could actually approve all of them in one motion, if that would be better.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. If we can do that, then yes, thank you for the suggestion. Let's do that. Do we have a motion to approve items F1? Any changes to any minutes for F2? And then item F4, receive and file the Budget and Finance Commission tentative calendar. Would anyone like to comment or make any changes to any item on the consent calendar? Then let's please have a meeting to approve all of the items on the consent calendar with the exception of F3, which has been moved to agenda item I. Do we have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We'll do a roll call vote then, please. Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Chun,
Aye.
Commissioner Wen,
Aye.
Commissioner Woodham,
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy,
Aye.
Commissioner Samples,
Aye.
and Chair votes aye as well. Thank you, everyone. The next item on the agenda are excluded consent calendar items, which we have none, which would bring us to public participation on non-agenda items. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak or comment on any subject that does not appear on the agenda for action tonight. This section is limited to 30 minutes, and each speaker is limited to 3 minutes to address the commission. Each speaker is permitted to speak once or provide the 1 3-minute comment. Written requests will be considered first. Do we have any public participation on non-agenda items tonight?
We don't have any through Zoom. Doug, do we have any e-comments?
No e-comments.
And then also,
Okay, great.
just for the record, the consent calendar also didn't have any e-comments or Zoom participation. Just
Okay, thank you for the reminder. Okay, we'll move on to, that would include H1 for any comments, e-comments, which brings us to item I, which are items continued from previous agendas. That is tonight going to be the consideration of salary adjustments for mayor, city council, and city attorney in advance of the March 2021 election. We have listed on the agenda Diane Strickfaden as the presenter. Is Diane with us, or would that be you tonight, Marnie?
Neither she nor Caitlin, who presented last month, were available. But you had requested comparable salaries, salary survey, and so they've included that information in your admin report. Just with that,
Okay, great.
turn it over
Thank
to you for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Marnie. So what we have is a request from the last meeting, as Marnie mentioned, to get some peer review for other cities similarly situated with elected city officials, city attorneys, and appointed city attorneys. And I found the information that was presented by staff to be really helpful. And then the blue folder item included a representation of additional cities and populations as was presented for everyone's review. What seems to be the most striking thing to me is that at a time when we have a lot of very trying and very challenging budgetary constraints, that the city attorney position that we have within the city of Redondo Beach, it's fortuitous that we're reviewing it right now, seems to be outside the norm or beyond where other representative cities have compensation. Amongst the cities that were presented by staff in the report, you have Long Beach, which has a population of 463,000 and a budget of $2.6 billion, compensating the city attorney position less than what we have. San Francisco, 883,000 people and a $12 billion budget with compensation smaller than what we have. Even cities that are smaller in nature, like Huntington Beach at 200,000 population and a budget of $359 million, we were not comparable there. We were excess of where they were. And the spreadsheet that was presented has a number of different cities. When you looked at the compensation for our city attorney position per capita, we were third highest in the state. And by pure salary and benefits total compensation, our elected city attorney's position was fifth highest in the state. For a city of 68 some odd thousand people, with an annual budget just over $100 million, $125 million, it seems that perhaps in reviewing our compensation package at a time when we are laying people off, defunding positions, very challenged economically, this might be the time to revisit or visit whether or not we can address that, what seems to be out of context for like cities and like populations and like budgets, and talk about it and see if we want to make a recommendation based on that. So with that, I have one hand up. I have Commissioner Conroy, and I'll recognize Commissioner Conroy has the floor, please.
Thank you. Agreeing with the points that you made, and I just wanted to add to that. Not only are we cutting positions, but we're also cutting services provided to the city. Last May, at the state level, the state officials were all given the opportunity to take a voluntary 10% pay cut. Many of them did, including Governor Newsom. I think in light of the dire financial straits we're currently in, and we anticipate going into the future, that we propose something to our current city attorney, the opportunity to take a voluntary 10% pay cut in his annual total wages. And in addition to that, I know time is of the essence, as was stated in our last meeting, that we needed to get our recommendation to City Council by their October 6th meeting. My proposal, my suggestion is that if we can, that we amend the ordinance for the next election of the city attorney to include a 10% pay cut. Yeah, and that's what I proposed and bring up for suggestion or comment.
Beyond the voluntary pay cut, making that recommendation as part of the change in the ordinance for the next election cycle?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Commissioner Woodham, did you have a comment or question, please?
Got a question. I'm looking at the spreadsheet that was sent with the item today, and there are two columns on here that I don't understand. We show regular pay, and then other pay, and then pension debt, and all of that is summed to get total pay and benefits. What are those? What is other pay, and what is pension debt? How does that factor into compensation?
Bonnie, would you mind tackling that one?
Yeah, so the information that Human Resources provided is from the state controller's report that they put on their website. That's information that we provide directly to them. Transparent California, which is where I believe the other information came from, they then do a public records request asking for what we've submitted to state controller. And then they take that information, but then they add in the pension debt. And that they have some formula that they divide up our outstanding liability by, and exactly how they do that, I don't know. We certainly can't tie to a number like that.
But I'm not sure. I don't understand even what pension debt is. Is that unamortized liability?
It's our unfunded liability. Yes.
Okay, then so we're calculating that on a per capita or a per employee basis?
They are, yeah. They are allocating it somehow to the employees. We don't provide that information to them.
We may provide it at the city level, because I see for some cities it says not provided under pension debt. Or
well, that is, think, I am not positive, but the little bit of looking I did, those may be places where they're not in CalPERS. They are in other retirement plans, maybe their own, something like that. And so CalPERS does provide information, Transparent California, and my assumption is that these some of these other pension plans do not provide information to Transparent California.
I also think there's a possibility that if you look at all the not provided, all but one of them are over $100,000 or right about $100,000. So I don't know what kind of health for benefits. I don't know what kind of health plan they're in, but it's very possible that their retirement benefits are included in that benefits line.
Yes.
I agree, Steve. I have the same observation.
And they definitely are, because that pension debt column is only the unfunded liability. Our normal cost pension benefits are included in the other total. So again, from State Controller's website, that total retirement and health contribution does include the normal cost contribution, but excludes the unfunded liability.
Can we think about that for a second, Marnie? Because it would really surprise me that Mr. Webb's pension and his benefits are in the $50,000 number. Did I hear you correct to say that?
Yeah, and most of that is pension.
So it's strange. And you know, I run into this where we're a not-for-profit, and some of our trustees and executives have some of this information posted in places. We file a 990 that's public information, and so if this pension debt, and so I'm used to seeing things that shock people. Oh my gosh, they have a pension something that they've built up over 41 years. Oh my God, they got paid $3 million. Yeah, well, it took them 41 years to get it. So if and they are a, CEO of a company. And that's all hypothetical information. But this pension debt, if it's just an obligation number that's outstanding at one point in time, I don't think it's appropriate for our purposes to view that as a current year compensation. So if that indeed is what it is, it's like saying, for me, I'll just pick on me because I don't have that kind of pension. Okay, Mr. Johnson, you make $100,000 a year, and our pension plan is unfunded for you for $80,000. Therefore, we're going to disclose that your annual compensation is $180,000. That doesn't make any sense. That $80,000 has to be funded over the entire remaining term of my employment. So I'm not sure what that pension debt means. It's not a number that looks like it should be included, but yet this source does include it.
Yeah, and in fact, that unfunded pension liability in some cases could have all been developed or mostly developed before the individual we're looking at was even hired. So we can structure a case where maybe it should be allocated, but there are also many cases where it has no relevance at all.
I would just add that this is the amount specific to 2019, and there's a different number for 2018, 2017, and so forth. So even if this portion were allocated over a period of time, you're going to have to add all those other numbers as well. I think they probably did go in and look at what the pension contribution was and the unfunded liability, and if they were doing the math, figured out that this is the amount that applies to the year 2019.
Yeah, so one of the things we talk about during budget always is the difference between the normal cost portion and the unfunded liability portion that we contribute each year to PERS. The reason being is this: with that unfunded liability, if we don't have the position, we still have to make the payment. Whereas the normal cost, if we don't have the employee, we don't have to make the payment. So in this case, if you're looking at the amount of the salary, that normal cost goes down because it's a percentage. But your unfunded liability, it is what it is. It's a flat dollar amount, and the city has to pay it regardless of what you're paying in salaries currently.
Chair Solomon,
The
can I?
total cost of the city. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. I'm going to throw out my first monkey wrench here, and I'm looking away from the spreadsheet. We don't know what's in that unfunded number. So, okay, guys, kick me if I'm wrong, but there's not an individual on this panel that's going to vote to cut somebody's salary based upon numbers we don't understand. So I'm not looking at that number. And what I will look at is 269, 73. That's, nice bonus or whatever. So he's an attorney, roughly 350-ish, and he's got pension and health benefits of 50. I'm going to be the first to throw out big deal, given the litigious problems that this city is involved in. I mean, we can't compare him to somebody who's not having the waterfront issues and not having the power plant issues and all of the other things that the city's involved in. I think it's a little bit cavalier to say that somebody with what I expect is Mr. Webb's background to say, no, you shouldn't make $400,000 a year. That seems like a decent number to me, but that's my first comment.
I think in response to that, I would say a couple things. First of all, when I was referring to a voluntary 10% pay cut and an amendment to the ordinance for a 10% pay cut, that related to the total pay amount of $343,228, which ties to the city's numbers and does not include the benefits or the pension debt. In addition to that, as you may feel it's cavalier, I would also say it's naive to think that we're the only city with legal problems that the city attorney must contend with. And it would be reasonable to think that larger cities with larger populations would only have more legal things to deal with or larger scale. So, we're comparing, this is the best model we have to compare apples to apples. And it just, it'd be one thing if we were in the middle of the pack, but the fact that we're at, the very top, no matter kind of how you slice and dice it, we're in the top, begs the question, what is Redondo Beach's needs that warrant being this high up, being ahead of other much larger cities from the staff's report, San Francisco, Long Beach with these huge budgets? Why is it that Redondo Beach with its 67,000 population, its needs warrant paying the top tier amongst all of among all of our California cities? And I don't doubt that Mike Webb is a fantastic attorney, and he may deserve a salary much greater than this. But we don't define the position around the individual. We define the position based on what the city's needs are and what it can afford. And that's why it's an elected position. People that want to run for that position, knowing what the city's needs are and what the compensation is, they're the ones that run for it.
And those are all valid points. And I think you raise a tremendous series of questions that mostly are unanswered. And indeed, they posted a salary and he ran for it. He was elected, and I don't think anybody has any question. I will violently oppose asking him to take a pay cut.
Well, it's a voluntary pay
I guess
cut.
like to make a couple of quick points, if I may, please. One is the idea that this is about the office and not the man or the woman who might occupy that office. This is specific to the elected position of city attorney, and that's how I believe that we should reflect on it. Not necessarily what Mr. Webb's achievements or qualifications or anything are right now. He is the elected city attorney for the city of Redondo Beach. He may opt to run for office again. He may not. He may have a challenger. He may not. But this is about the office and whether or not the compensation for that office is appropriate compared to a peer review of others in the state. The second thing that I would note, and I think you make a good point, that certainly there's a lot of litigation in the city. We do spend millions of dollars a year hiring outside counsel. So while our elected city attorney would need to manage that, seek out that consultation and work with those individuals in challenging any variety of lawsuits, whether it be SB 15 and charter city challenges, or the waterfront, or the AES power plant, we do still spend quite a bit of money on outside counsel for obligations that the city attorney is not taking on. So I would rather speak about it in terms of the office itself. This is the opportunity for the person who is arriving next on the scene to be elected in March of 2021 to either say, yes, if we make the recommendation to reduce the salary for the next 4 years, yes, I would be willing to work for that salary, or no, that's not something that I'm willing to do. Taking the 10% voluntary pay cut suggestion off the table, this is about amending this ordinance and whether or not it's appropriate for the next person who holds that.
Thanks for the clarification. Right.
Hey, Marnie.
Okay. Jerry, Mel has his hand up, and then I'll please go to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, I agree on that last column that talks about pension benefits. I didn't understand that for a minute. Realizing that our city attorney has a term limit of 8 years, it just made no sense. So I didn't look at that column.
He does not, Mel. The city attorney does not have term limit. The city attorney is not term limited.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. But even at that, I would imagine that we probably will not continue to vote for a city attorney until he's had 20 or 30 years in office. So the point is that number just didn't make any sense to me. So total compensation was not something I looked at. I did look at total pay, which is regular pay and other pay. Benefits is something that is part of negotiated compensation. So that wasn't something I looked at. But if you just look down the total pay column, our city attorney is definitely in the top tercile. And forgetting about names, forgetting about personalities, when I look at our population, our budget, and I look down the column of the other cities that are there are cities with 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6, 7 times our population. That tends to make me believe that the span of responsibility, the span of control of the city attorney is much greater than ours. And I believe that compensation kind of goes with span of responsibility in terms of number of personnel in the department, size of the department, budget of the department. We don't have those numbers, but I think population and size of the agencies gives us an idea of what those should be. And we are still absolutely in the top tercile. The staff recommendation is that we not move forward with a raise for this position at this time. And I don't think that our current city attorney could sign up for any kind of a voluntary reduction in salary and make it binding on whoever the new incumbent is. So I think I would have to go with the staff recommendation of no raise at this time, and the recommendation or the proposal that whoever is the sitting city attorney come March, that they consider taking a voluntary pay cut in order to help with our budget problems. I mean, we've got layoffs going on. To Commissioner Conroy's point, we've got layoffs. We've got other cutbacks in services, and this is one of the most highly compensated positions in our city. It's just really kind of unfair that the executive with the highest compensation takes no hit. And I would like to just see that as an act of faith on whoever is sitting in that chair in March.
Can we clarify if
a couple
if
points
you're saying,
of clarification?
I'm sorry, it was your turn.
Yeah, there's a couple of points of clarification. Then Commissioner Woodham was next up, please, Steve. When it comes to changing the salary, a voluntary pay cut, any elected official could make can make that a voluntary reduction. This was discussed when the city treasurer role went from being full-time to part-time, and there was an opportunity at the time if you wanted to take a pay cut, and the city treasurer waited until the amendment that changed our city charter and took a pay cut at that time to make it a part-time job. I don't think that if you want to change the city attorney position's compensation, this is the time to do it. As a reminder from our last meeting, because the nomination period is coming, and it would have to be done before the nomination period, the change, in order for whomever decides to run for that role to know what the compensation is going to be if they are elected. Now, if somebody wanted to run on a platform of, if this stays the same, I will voluntarily surrender 10% of my salary, that's a different story. And they could certainly do that. But this is about, to me, what we're reviewing tonight, whether or not the compensation that elected position has, now is the time if we wanted to make a recommendation to change it, and is it in line with what we feel is appropriate in view of other cities of similar size, population, and budget across the state. Commissioner Woodham had a question, and then comment, and then Commissioner Johnson, please.
Yes, my question goes back to my original one, and maybe Marty answered this and I missed it. But we've got salary, a regular pay, and then other pay. What is other pay? We don't get bonuses, so.
You're muted, Marty.
I don't have up the blue folder item. I just have the admin report.
So I can probably answer some of that. So sometimes it could be cashing out vacation. That's normally what ends up in other pay. So the city.
Would it be cell phone reimbursement and car reimbursement, things like that, Eleanor?
Yes.
Yes, that would be included there too. But that's pretty much it. The car, phone allowance, and then also I think it's, I'm not sure if it's everyone, but it's 60 hours that they can cash out vacation pay. So if you have, because we can only earn a certain amount per year. So if we're at that top of that level, then we can cash out. So he could be doing that.
So if you've maxed out your vacation time bank, it's either use it or lose it, or cash it out or lose it.
Correct. And then I think there's been a change in our budget that if you've been doing it, then you can keep doing it. If that's correct, Marnie? I think that's correct.
That's just the budget. It doesn't restrict anybody.
Oh, okay.
So
on this
that's for beyond elected officials.
60 hours is 60 hours cash out would be $7,500.
So, okay. So then there's other things in there.
So if you look at the budget on the city attorney, there is items for other pay, car allowance, cell phone allowance, vacation, holiday, cash out. So there is a separate line item for other.
Right.
And in addition, there's somebody in that position, since they're getting the same benefits as management, could also get longevity pay. They could get professional development reimbursement, things like that.
That's really where you're seeing the delta in his compensation. You know, when you look at and I'm looking at the regular list, starting regular pay at 261 at the top, just for pointing out. You know, we've got a zillion people in the 250, 260, 270, 290, 270, 255. I don't have to read that to you. And there he is at 270. There's nothing that stands out. But when you look at the people whose pension doesn't appear to be included, or I guess when you look at the other pay, there's only 10 people that are in that group, and he's almost the highest. So there's something going on in that number that we don't understand, and we're not going to get there by adding up cell phone, car allowance, and training that he went to.
And then longevity, 12%,
Yeah.
I think. That's 12%.
It seems to me that the total pay is high. I would agree with the comments that have been made, but I'm frankly uneasy about voting to recommend a 10% reduction when I don't understand fully what makes up those other pieces.
Mr. Chair, can you advise the group, the commissioners, on what our decisions are? I think our decision is, do we agree with the recommendation for no salary increase? I think that's one. And then we have a separate discussion about would we make any other recommendation. Can you clarify that, please?
Yeah, that's what you'd be doing. You're just, because council makes the decision, you are simply the first look at it, telling council, as you make your decision, here's what we think.
I think to back onto that just a minute, please, Marnie. We can, with a report like this, accept staff's recommendation and forward that to council, or we can make a recommendation of our own. So if we wanted to make the recommendation to say, in this discussion that we've had in the last two meetings, we have had asked the staff, and staff has provided a peer review of other salaries for this position across the state. And we're asking the council to review whether or not they feel like, rather than leaving it the same, a reduction or an increase would be appropriate at this time. I think all of those things are available to us as a commission to make recommendation. If you wanted to make recommendation and take a vote, that'd be staff's recommendation, that's fine. Or a 10% pay cut, or simply to have the council review and make their own suggestions. Either or any of those things I think would be appropriate. My position is that when I look at the peer review, and I specifically look at try to find similar sized cities and similar sized budgets to find what's appropriate. When I see that in reviewing it, when you just look at the number itself, it's out of context. It's different to pay an attorney a base salary of $270,000 a year on a budget of $120 million versus paying someone a salary of $270,000 a year and a budget of $2.6 billion, like they have in the city of Long Beach, or $6.6 billion, like they have in the city of Los Angeles. Or even when you looked at Chula Vista, they have a budget of $390 million. The closest that I found in the staff report was San Rafael, that had a population of about 58,000 and a budget of 128 million, and the total annual total wages plus the total retirement health contribution came to about 220,000 total, which is a pretty big span from where we are. So I look at it as comparison of similar populations and similar budgets. I don't think it's a fair comparison to say just the number itself when that comparative city has a budget of several hundred million or $1 billion versus our 120 or 30 million. And that's where I think the discussion should be visited, as to whether or not it's appropriate for a city of our size and budget to be paying this compensation. And I would suggest that rather than giving the city council a number, I would posit that we simply provide them this information, say that staff is recommending no change, but I would like myself personally to have them view or visit that number and see if they feel it's appropriate, because they're the ones that will be able to make the change.
But that's implied that that's what
Commissioner,
they'll be doing. And one of the pieces
it can be. But it's
for them to
it's a
consider
policy
is
decision,
your
it's up to them.
recommendation.
Yes. I don't see any hands. Commissioner Conroy, did you have a comment or a question?
Just to add to what you say, I'm underlining it. This is a tough time for the city. You know, my recommendation of never mind the voluntary one, but the amended ordinance for the next elected city attorney would be a 10% discount in only the annual total wages, nothing beyond that related to benefits or unfunded liabilities. We're talking about roughly $34,000 when at a time when we're eliminating positions that are making twice that. So we're asking some people to give up 100% of their salary, whereas here we're asking the next city attorney to take a reduction of 10% of only their wages. You know, this is again, to your point, this is our highest compensated elected official, or maybe city official, period. And it just seems inconsistent to not have this position share the burden in light of, to your point, aside never mind the things that we don't fully understand, there's things that we do fully understand. The population of our city, the size of the budget of our city, and and the pay as presented in staff's report. Again, time is of the essence. I think if our only recommendation to city council was that they should consider it, by the time they consider it, I feel that it'll then be too late, and that there won't be time to make any adjustment prior to the nominations for the election. So personally, my recommendation to city council, which is our job to look at these things in depth and give them recommendations to help them make wise decisions that are in the best interest of the city and its taxpayers, its residents. My recommendation to city council would be a 10% reduction of the annual total wages for the city attorney.
Commissioner Johnson, please.
I apologize.
Yeah, sure.
If it seems like I'm jumping in from time to time, I don't have the ability to press a button and raise my hand, so I just raised it. So a couple things, and what I wanted to ask before, we talked about sharing in the pain, and this being one of the more highly compensated individuals, although an elected official. Have the city manager, assistant city manager, and other people at high levels of compensation, have they taken pay cuts on a mandated basis?
Not that I'm aware of, Marnie. Do you know of that?
No, not pay cuts, not in a number of years.
Okay, and my recollection of our analysis of the gaps in the budget is that positions are eliminated, but almost universally it was a bloodless elimination. There were very few people, and I would say I don't think it's this many, that were shown the door and said your position's been eliminated. As we have seen over the years, it is the crossing out of an unfilled and unhired position, and I'm willing to be corrected on that. There were, I know, one or two positions eliminated. This is just my anecdotal recollection. But for the vast majority of the budget cuts that were made, they were completely bloodless. There weren't people who lost their jobs. And I think that these are all valid concerns. And so certainly if the commission decides that a recommendation to study this is valid, I would point out that from my personal view and experience, we are not an HR compensation committee. We were sent a blue folder item. I don't know if it was this afternoon or it was soon. And we're looking at a lot of data, and we universally agree we don't know what's in that data. The $73,000 other income number is alarming. And one might make some observations about comparing someone's duties against somebody else's duties. I would ask each of us to really dig deep into your experience and to your sense of fairness, and to say, would you want someone to make a recommendation, 7 men to sit in a room and say, well, you look high on this spreadsheet and I think you should take a pay cut? Or does this require some real analysis to know what's in the numbers? That's normally what we would do, is say, we don't really know what's in that data. So I think that's my position on that.
I would just make a couple of observations, and then I'll go to Commissioner Conroy, please. The first observation, Commissioner Johnson, would be that the position, let's say, of the city manager, assistant city manager, those are contract employees. And it's different than the elected official's position here, where it's a municipal code change that occurs or is available only once every 4 years. So it's done by municipal code change rather than a negotiated compensation for an employee. It's an elected official. So there's a distinction there. I would politely push back on the idea that it was a bloodless event, because there are people who involuntarily lost their jobs. There are people that were laid off and did not wish to be laid off as a result of the current situation we find ourselves in. The last point that I'd make in response to your well-reasoned comments is this is not something that's going to happen now. This would be something that the person who runs for this position, whomever that might be, whether it be Mr. Webb or a challenger or somebody else, that the decision that they are making to accept this salary, whatever that might be. Because when they run for the office, that's why we're doing this now. By code, it's set. They will know going in, the premium paid for this role is going to be X rather than where it is now. So whomever that person is, they will be opting, or pun intended, electing to accept that salary. We're not changing anything for anybody now. The current city attorney will not, and we don't have that ability, but theoretically, the current city attorney will not see any change unless the council makes the change, and then he elects and is elected to accept that reduced salary for the next term. So I understand where you're coming from. It's easy for us to sit in a room and talk about it theoretically. But it does not affect anybody unwillingly. They would opt into that. The last comment I would make, and appreciate, I think you make a very valid point about the blue folder item. Take that out. Go ahead and disregard that information and simply view the staff report and the numbers presented in the staff report, and they still reflect that when you review it by city population, by city budget, that our compensation seems to be out of what would be a peer city or peer review. Commissioner Conroy, please.
Well, Chairman Solomon, you basically made my points for me. All I was going to say is this is a truly bloodless reduction, because it doesn't affect our current city attorney. This would affect the future one. No one's asking Mr. Webb to take a mandatory pay reduction under his current term. It's only for the future. It's fully disclosed, and anybody running for that position will be aware of it. And once again, time is of the essence. To your point, the information was all in our staff report, and it really, the blue folder item just further supports what's in the staff's report. So this is our only chance to make this recommendation to the city council. They need to, so if we're going to do a recommendation, this is the time to do it. There is no further time allowed for us to study it, unfortunately, unless we're talking about 4 years from now. So I think that's really our role, is to work with the information we're provided and use our best judgment based on each of our own personal histories, and make a recommendation to City Council, which they may or may not take. Thank you.
Commissioner Samples, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I agree with Commissioner Conroy. Your point is very well taken. If we get out of the weeds of that blue folder item, which has items that we just don't understand and we don't have anyone here capable of speaking to, and we go back to the staff report itself, it does paint a picture that there is something that we can deal with. And I have to respectfully disagree with Commissioner Johnson when he says a bunch of guys sitting in a room that are taking a pencil to salaries. In management, that happens all the time. So this is not unusual to look at what is the value for our dollars and what can we afford, and what's the right thing to do going forward. And back to Commissioner Conroy's point, if we do suggest any kind of a pay cut, this is something that whoever runs for office is going to walk into with eyes wide open. So it's not that we're cutting the legs out from under an existing employee or person providing service to the city. And finally, the idea of a bloodless reduction in the current budget, I'm not sure that we have directly seen it yet, but we were at less than full staffing in the first place, and those positions have now been cut. So I believe that at some point there will be a way to recognize that the citizens of the city are seeing less service than they used to see as a result of these budget cuts. So that's kind of my piece in that. I kind of believe that we should at the very least make a recommendation that the council consider the idea of reducing that salary, but I'm ready to move on.
Okay, Commissioner Chun has a comment or a question, please.
You're muted, Warren.
You're on mute, Commissioner Chun.
I lowered my hand and
There you go.
thank you for all the comments and also staff. I think, that's a lot better clarity in terms of this is an elected position and they don't have to take it because they know upfront what the salary is or the full compensation. And so, for us, it's the best available information in what we have and with our capabilities. And so I think at a minimum, I agree with Commissioner Samples and Conroy that we should at least do a minimum, leave it as is, or a 10% pay cut. That would be my recommendation, and leave it to council for that. But yeah, 10%, it's reasonable.
I don't see any other hands. Is there any other discussion on the item?
We want to check and see if there's any.
Let's go to a public comment. Yes, thank you, Marnie.
So Eleanor, is there any in Zoom? I'm not seeing any. Are there any e-comments, Doug?
No e-comments.
Okay, we have no comments from the Zoom, and we have no comments from the public. Do we have a motion that Commissioner would like to formulate for this item?
And if I could interject before the motion, if it's not to just leave it the same, or even if it is to leave it the same as staff recommended, you're making a recommendation for each of the 4 years. So staff's recommendation was to leave it flat each of the 4 years. So if something other than that, you'll want to specify each year.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll take
that's
a
very
whack at
helpful,
I'll take a
Marty.
whack at a motion.
I'm just, stand by just a second, please, Commissioner Conroy, please. Marty, to clarify, if the recommendation or the request of the commission was to, rather than a specific number, to have this, the council review the salary, would it be then for each of the 4 years, or would you do it as a blanket, or you could do it either way?
So they are going to review the salary regardless. They're looking at you as a commission for some additional input on making that decision. So, I mean,
Okay.
we are going to look at it. So it's either your recommendation is to go with staff's recommendation or of leaving it the same, or some alternate recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Conroy, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. I move that we recommend to City Council to either keep the compensation level the same, or to consider a 10% reduction per an amendment to the ordinance affecting the next elected city attorney.
And would you want that 10% pay cut to be in the first year or 10% each year of the 4 years, or some variation thereof? Would you be recommending a 10% pay cut for year 1 and then to be reinstated in year 2, or simply a 10% pay cut and then for years 2, 3, and 4 to be flat?
I would recommend a 10% pay cut and then years 2, 3, and 4 to be flat. And that would
Okay.
be to bring us, additionally, that would be to bring us more in line with similar sized cities with similar sized budgets.
Wouldn't it be fairly normal that if we reduce, or if the council decided to reduce year 1, that years 2, 3, and 4 would be subject to whatever normal review process would take place, such as it's taking place now? Or do we fix all those 4 years now?
The increases are done once every 4 years, I believe. I'm sorry, Marty.
Yeah, and Marty,
That's it, Marty, if you wanted to explain that, but I believe it's fixed now for the next 4 years. Whatever the decision of the council would be, it would not be reviewed until 4 years hence, technically 2024.
Exactly.
and Marty, clarify this for me. Our other union contracts right now are going to extend at least 3 or 4 years out from now, and their salaries, raises, and those things are already cast. So they're not going to change over the next 4 years. Is that correct? I mean, they're not subject to any renegotiation in the next 4 years.
Some are. I know the newest one, the fire, goes out a number of years. Police.
There's a number
I
of
can't
different
remember if only
employee,
police management or both police bargaining groups extend, and the miscellaneous groups are coming up to the end of their contract pretty quick.
Okay, so if we're talking about locking this down for 4 years, it's not completely out of the ordinary for where our other contracts are, correct? Am I misreading that? Because what I'm getting at is there a reason to put in any kind of review over the next 4 years, or is it consistent with what we're doing in our other bargaining groups to say this is what it is for the next 4 years?
Yeah, a review cannot be done along the way. All 4 years are decided at once, so the person running for the position knows for their full term what it's going to be. And that seems to be kind of in line with the current contracts for the public safety groups, but not for the miscellaneous, at least at this point.
Okay, and the public safety groups, they're getting either none or very small cost of living raises over the next 4 years, correct?
Yeah, it's been designed so that although they may get cost of living increases, something else offset that. So it was kind of a net zero.
Okay.
Yeah, again, it's very different for the employees and contract groups than it is for city officials and city elected officials.
Yeah, I was just
trying to, is that
I was just trying to understand,
Please go
because
ahead.
in prior years, there was a table that gave annual raises for the city attorney. So I was just trying to, I guess, kind of align what we're doing with our other employee groups with what we're doing with this city attorney position.
Marnie, staff's current recommend. Marnie,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Chen has been waiting. Commissioner Chen, you had your hand up, please.
Yeah, so, Chair, I would go along with Commissioner Conroy's motion and would go with that. So if that would be brought up, I totally would agree with Commissioner Conroy's proposed motion.
Okay, so we'll accept that as a second then. Is that all right with you, Commissioner Chen?
I would second Commissioner Conroy's recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Conroy, comment or a question, please. You're on mute, Jason.
I was just going to bring up a point of clarification. Staff's current recommendation for raises over the next 4 years contract is to have no raises. Is that correct, Marnie?
Right. Each of the 4 years, no raise.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
So it's really only a slight modification of the staff recommendation. The motion being to restate it for clarity, a recommendation by the Budget and Finance Commission to City Council to consider a 10% pay cut in year 1 for the elected position of city attorney, beginning in the 2021 term and remaining flat for years 2, 3, and 4 over that period of time until the next nomination, previous to the next nomination period. Does that seem complete to you, Marnie?
Right.
Okay. Is there any other discussion from the panel? Commissioner Johnson, did you have a comment or a question?
I just think that because it's a recommendation that they consider, then I don't object.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other discussion from the commission members? Commissioner Chun, you have your hand up again, or is that from before?
No, I think the other thing too is given COVID-19 budget cuts across the nation, budget cuts across the state and municipalities such as Redondo Beach, I think it says that we are serious about not just the short term, but the long term, because it's going to be painful given the levels of unemployment and a lot of the companies still laying off and just challenges, and especially on the retail side with, you know, small restaurants and small businesses closing shop. So I think it just gives a strong statement, not only that that the city is serious about you know, making ends meet, but it also sends a message also to the other labor agreements going forward when they come up for renegotiation, that you know, we're not giving a blank check, and that the city is serious about reducing costs to the extent possible.
All good points. Okay, absent any other comments, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on the motion. Commissioner Conroy, please.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Marnie, go ahead.
Yeah, could I just clarify? So it's to, the recommendation is not an or, leave it the same or cut 10%, it is to cut 10%?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and then also part of your action is mayor and council. Are you recommending staff's recommendation to leave that flat for the 4 years as well?
I would ask the motion maker, is that your inclination, Commissioner Conroy?
Yes, regarding the mayor and city council, as a commission, we're going with staff's recommendation to keep things the same.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Chair, I think,
Any other comments then?
yeah, Chair, I think I'm hearing two different things. I heard the motion that the council either accept the recommendation of staff or consider a cut. And apparently I heard that wrong.
I believe the motion is, I've asked the motion maker that we were recommending, the motion is to recommend a 10% pay cut for year one for the elected city attorney's position, leaving it flat for years 2, 3, and 4, and leaving the pay or the compensation for mayor and city council to be flat for the next 4 years.
All right, thank you.
Not the, is that accurate?
That is.
Okay. And anything else then? I'll go with Commissioner Conroy for a vote on the motion, please.
Aye.
Commissioner Chun?
Aye.
Commissioner Samples?
Aye.
Commissioner Woodham?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Commissioner Wynn?
Aye.
Okay, we have, Chair would vote aye as well. We have 6-1 recommendation to the council. Motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then, please. Which is discussion and possible action regarding coronavirus relief funds provided in the Federal CARES Act. We have Finance Director Marnie Ruland, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. So as you know, the city's budget situation centers around COVID-19. So it was great news when we received notification that the state is allocating $500 million of their CARES Act money to cities. And Redondo Beach is getting about $827,000 of that. Since that is definitely a help to the budget, I wanted to give you a quick update on what we're doing with the CARES Act funding. We did our first reporting to the state last week. That reporting was for March 2020 to June 2020. And we weeded through the expenditures the departments had coded as COVID related, and then worked with the state to clarify what's CARES Act eligible or not, and ended up with expenditures for that time period that are eligible in the neighborhood of about $525,000. The largest expenditure category in your admin report, I didn't have the amounts yet, but had the categories. The largest expenditure category for us was unemployment benefits at about $200,000. And then the next largest, just because its list of eligible expenditures was so broad, were the public health expenses at about $180,000. Then also, City Council has approved using $70,000 of the city's CARES Act funding for business assistance grants. These grants are to reimburse small businesses in the Riviera Village and then in the Artesia Aviation Commercial Corridor for their COVID-related expenditures. When council adopted this, they made the reimbursed expenditures a little bit different in the two areas, but they all must be COVID related. We'll be having quarterly reporting to the state through the end of the calendar year. So these grants will be included in future reporting, together with any expenditures from July through whichever quarter we're reporting on. The grants will be included, plus expenditures where we expect to see the same categories. I expect that our unemployment benefits will be large again, at least for one more quarter. And then again, the PPE and the public health expense. We've also received some smaller grants that are going to help us with PPE and some COVID testing costs. So just overall, some good news. Doesn't save the budget, but it does mean that we don't have to absorb these COVID-related expenditures just from the budget that was adopted. So just wanted to pass along some good news.
That's great. Thanks, Marnie. And it looked like from the staff report that these funds have already been accounted for or exhausted for what we have. So we won't be sending any back.
We won't.
A quick question on the A quick question on testing. Is that something that is for particular departments, say police or fire, that we're getting a reimbursement for there, or is it for other employees? What's the testing component to that?
The primary user will be public safety because they're interacting with the public day in and day out. So they are going to be the ones exposed the most.
Chief beneficiaries of that
Yep.
compensation there. And so will this money go into the general fund and then be allocated to the departments, or how would that work? Would it be allocated to the department in some other way?
So what we're doing is we had City Council at their last meeting adopt a budget modification for the amount of the CARES Act grant. We have a disaster recovery fund. We set that up a number of years ago for FEMA reimbursed disasters we had in the past, fires, earthquakes, that kind of thing. And so we asked them to appropriate that funding there. Then what we did as we were reporting to the state and found exactly what we're claiming, we moved those expenditures out of, again, it's going to be primarily the general fund, but not exclusively, but out of the funds they had been charged to originally into the disaster recovery fund. And then any that's not spent, come November, we'll ask them to carry over the unspent amount, and we'll be able to finish it up in the current fiscal year.
And we'd be able to do that as a carryover, and that would be considered an encumbered fund that we wouldn't have to send back.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Chun has a question or comment, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Marnie, for that. I'm so grateful that we were able to get those funds. I'm just kind of curious as to the funds and how is it going to be chosen who gets to receive it, right? The 70,000, the 50,000 to Riviera Village, and then 20,000 to Artesia Aviation, right? I mean, there's a lot of other small businesses on whether it's PCH or even small businesses on 190th. So who gets to pick and choose? Is it a lottery? Is it first come, first serve? Or are we just going to get all the business licenses and give them X percentage? Or how is that going to be taken care of?
So council set the parameters. They actually have asked to review it again at their upcoming meeting, so they may change it a bit again. But currently, the Riviera Village is going to go to the bid, and the Business Improvement District, and the Business Improvement District will take care of allocating it to individual businesses, or maybe they've made the expenditures for the outdoor dining down there. It's up to them to disperse it. For those in the Artesia Aviation Corridor, currently it is first come, first serve. So we have guidelines and requirements that must be submitted. And so it'll be first come, first serve of those who meet the criteria and have provided the proper documentation.
So you're saying that basically if I'm a small business owner that runs a small, let's say, accounting firm out of my house, that I don't have any availability to those funds, essentially?
The way it stands now, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Was that something that the disaster council discussed, or is that before the city council, or was it a combination of the two?
Just city council.
So essentially the city council is picking and choosing the winners that will get dispersed on this then.
So far.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the other commissioners? I don't see any hands. So we're simply making a motion to receive and file this report then, Marnie?
Right.
So there's no attendance for the Zoom meeting. I don't know if there's any e-comments.
No e-comments.
Okay.
Okay, for the record.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Second?
Okay. Is there a second?
Second?
That's great. We have a motion to receive and file the report from Commissioner Johnson, seconded by Commissioner Conroy. Let's do a roll call vote, please. Commissioner Johnson, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Chun?
Yes.
Commissioner Nguyen?
Aye.
Commissioner Samples?
Aye.
Commissioner Conroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Woodham?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Thank you very much, Marnie. We move on to our next item for discussion, which is discussion or update and possible action regarding CalPERS and Workers' Compensation Subcommittee report. Marnie and I emailed, asked the question this week, and we had some conversations between myself and Commissioner Conroy. We're trying to work out something with Commissioner Woodham, but we're frustrated by some logistics. I don't know if Commissioner Conroy, if you wanted to discuss or review what we discussed, or if you wanted me to review it, I'd leave that to you if you wanted to.
I'll defer to you.
Okay, thank you. What we did is I was able to go back to our 2018 presentation from the CalPERS representative, and Commissioners Conroy and Woodham were not on the commission at that time, so I wanted to provide them that information that was presented to us back in July of 2018. And then Finance Director Rulin was kind enough to provide us some updated information as an addendum to that report. Some of the things that we were looking at or trying to determine is the number of our PEPRA employees, the number of our classics versus PEPRA, tier 1 and tier 2. Try and see if there would be a way that we could move that 2029 curve bending event not having to wait another 9 or 10 years for our payments forward and move it up if there was some way of doing that and looking at it. Some of the conversation circling around the idea of the concept of early buyouts and maybe asking for an analysis or talking about an analysis of would early buyouts, how many employees would be eligible in a program? How many do we think would opt for that? What are the implications of it? And would early buyouts help us affect that number going forward with regard to our future CalPERS liabilities? That was mainly the discussion that we were having with the materials and reports and things that were presented with the subcommittee over the past week. The report from CalPERS was, if you all remember, those of us who were there, a pretty extensive report and reviewed a lot of different things. There's certainly been a lot of development since 2018. There was an article in 2018 that showed a 900% increase in CalPERS liabilities. And now we have this economic crisis. So that's what we focused on this past week, reviewing the CalPERS report, getting updated information, and looking to see if there is a methodology by which, whether it be early buyouts or exploring where we are on PEPRA versus classic employees, where we would stand going forward. Hopefully that's an accurate assessment, Commissioner Conway.
Absolutely. The only thing that I would add to that is, we're looking at information there, the graph that shows the bend in the curve, and that's information that was from 2 years ago. Marnie, we got some of your updated reports that you sent out, but I didn't see the similar graph. So I'm just not even 100% confident that the bend is still expected to happen in 2029. It might be 2031 or something at this point. So if that information is available, I would also like to see that.
Was that what the presenter provided?
Yeah, the CalPERS one.
I don't know if it would be helpful or not. We could certainly reach out to PERS and see if they could make a presentation again.
I don't know how often they
That'd be great.
typically, yeah. I don't know how often they typically do a presentation. Is it only when we request one?
Yes.
Okay.
And what it's like now, before they traveled here, to attend the meeting in person. I don't know if they're doing remote. If so, maybe it's easier. I don't know, but we can certainly reach out.
That would be great.
Do you know, Marnie, is that theory of early buyouts or prepays for certain employees? Certainly more of your seasoned employees are going to opt for that. I know it was touched on a little bit during the discussion of the budget. Is that something that you and the city manager or was talked about at all, or there was analysis done, or there wasn't an analysis done? Any kind of background that you could provide for us on that?
There was no analysis done on that. That hasn't been a desire, at least to this.
Okay.
I'm just guessing, but there are some cities that have opted for that. The most notable being Santa Monica. So maybe it's possible to get a hold of their analysis just for this is how the analysis is done.
Yeah, if we could piggyback on that and save some staff time, but have some available information for the logistics of it, how it's done, how they perceive it will be effective or ineffective, and then that I think would be really helpful as part of the global analysis of how we approach this problem. Commissioner Woodham, did you have a comment or a question?
That was just a question on how the unamortized portion is handled in the buyout, but let's hold that. If we can have CalPERS come in, that's the kind of question we should be asking them. So I mean, I'm certainly in favor of having that presentation scheduled if we can do it. The sooner the better.
Okay, thank you for making that offer, Marnie. That's a really great suggestion.
Sure.
Do we have any other, I'm sorry, go ahead. Do we have any other suggestions, comments, or questions from the members of the commission? Are there any e-comments or Zoom comments from the public on this item?
No Zoom comments.
No e-comments.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we would just simply continue this item until our next meeting, would be the motion to make at this moment for our continued discussion of the subcommittee's actions and or suggestions. So we'll go ahead and make a motion to continue this item to our next meeting. Would that be appropriate? Marnie, it's something we're bringing back on a monthly basis, right?
Yeah, it's something we have calendared to occur each month.
Okay.
We had envisioned it was just here on as a discussion item each month. You could continue it as well. Either one will work.
What would you recommend? We just, is there a way procedurally that we should handle this more appropriately?
I think it's fine the way we've been doing it. Just put it on the discussion calendar.
Okay, then we'll just, okay, then I don't think we need a roll call vote or a motion or a discussion beyond what we've done then. So that'll bring us to the next item on our agenda, which are member items and referrals to staff. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any items?
Mr. Chair, we have in our administrative package a calendar for the remainder of the year. Is there any need for us to discuss that, Marnie, or what's the purpose? Is that just for our information?
It is strictly for your information. One of the things you as the commission had requested was to keep track of items. And this is helping us to keep track of items and when they'll be discussed. As
So
you
thank you. I do appreciate the look ahead. It's very good. It's very helpful. Thank you. And no, Chair Solomon, I have no referrals.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was a great question, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Nguyen, any member items or referrals to staff?
Not at the moment. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Samples?
Marnie, just one question. And I was looking at exactly the same calendar. Either in the October or November discussion, can we also have a brief conversation or brief update on how our budget sits overall, revenues and expenses as compared to what we anticipated when we approved the budget back in June? I'm not looking for something detailed and you know, kind of getting into the weeds, but just kind of a checkpoint that says revenues are exceeding what we expected or they're less than what we expected, and the same thing on the expense side. And maybe a couple of key categories if they're worth considering or things that should be on our radar. Is that okay?
Yeah, so I believe we do have that scheduled, a quarterly budget update in November.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Conroy?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Whittam?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank Commissioner Chun for your, this will be your last meeting with us, as you did not apply for a reappointment. So we talked a little bit about it last time. If you wanted to make a referral, you can, but I want to personally thank you, and on behalf of everybody, hopefully, thank you for your coming prepared, coming with great questions, your friendship, your knowledge, and your experience during this period of time. I will speak for myself in saying you'll be sorely missed by me. If I'm reappointed, this may be my last meeting, so I won't make any requests or referrals. But thank you, Commissioner Chun, for your time, and best of luck. in your pursuits away from the commission.
Yeah, thank
with
you.
that being said, then.
Yeah, I just do want to say
Go
thank you
ahead,
to
please.
Chair and former chairs and fellow commissioners. Also thank Marnie, Doug, Cammie, Eleanor. It's been great being part of the process. I know you all have very challenging times. There's no question, and it's great that we've got great staff and great commissioners to really work together to make Redondo Beach, the best city in the South Bay and in California. And so I really appreciate the time. And you'll be hearing from me, not necessarily from the Budget Finance Commission, but speaking up at some of the bigger commissions that got some items that I have some concerns about. So thank you.
Thanks, Warren. I just want to put in 10 seconds worth. You always added a very wonderful professional viewpoint. You had a lot of technical and common sense to add. And just as a member of the commission, we will definitely miss you. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That'll bring us to our adjournment. So if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn our meeting for tonight, we'll look for that, please.
I will make that motion.
That's great. I was hoping you would. Is there a second?
I move we let Warren bang the gavel.
That's a great idea.
Second.
So we'll do a quick roll call vote to close it out. Commissioner Samples?
Aye.
Motion for adjournment. Commissioner Conroy?
Aye.
Commissioner Woodham?
Aye.
Commissioner Wen?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson?
Aye.
I'll vote aye as well. And Commissioner Chun, if you can gavel us out.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marnie.
Thank you.
Good night.
Aye.